Our next story by Grimm Fairy Tales is Hansel and Gretel. At the edge of a great forest lived a poor woodcutter with his wife and two children, a boy called Hansel and a girl called Gretel. The family had little to eat at the best of times, and what's more, there was famine in the land, and often the father couldn't even provide their daily bread. One night, as he lay in bed worrying about their poverty, he sighed and said to his wife, "What's going to become of us? How can we keep the children fed when we haven't any food for ourselves?" "I tell you what," she said, "this is what we'll do. Early tomorrow morning, we'll take them into the thickest part of the forest, make them comfortable, light a fire to keep them warm, give them a little bread, and then leave them there by themselves. They won't find their way home, and we'll be rid of them." "No, no, no," said the husband. "I won't do that. Abandon my children in the forest, never. Wild animals will tear them to pieces." "You're a fool," said the wife. "If we don't get rid of them, all four of us will starve. You may as well start planing the wood for our coffins." She gave him no peace and nagged him until he gave in. "But I don't like it," he said. "I can't help but feel sorry for them." In the next room, the children were awake. They couldn't sleep because they were so hungry, and they heard every word their stepmother said. Gretel wept bitterly and whispered, "Oh, Hansel, it's the end for us." "Hush," said Hansel. "Don't worry, I know what we can do." As soon as the grown-ups had fallen asleep, Hansel got out of his bed, put on his old jacket, opened the lower half of the door and crept outside. The moon was shining brightly, and white pebbles in the front of the house glittered like silver coins. Hansel crouched down and filled his pockets with as many as he could cram in. Then he went back inside, got into bed and whispered, "Don't worry, Gretel, go to sleep now. God will look after us. Anyway, I've got a plan." At daybreak, even before the sun had risen, the woman came in and pulled the covers off their bed. "Get up, lay about," she said. "We're going to the forest to get some wood." She gave each of them a slice of dry bread. "That's your lunch," she said, "and don't gobble it up too soon because there's nothing else." Gretel put the bread in her apron because Hansel's pockets were full of pebbles. They all set off together into the forest. From time to time, Hansel would stop and look back at the house until finally the father said, "What are you doing, boy? Keep up. Use your legs." "I'm looking at my white kitten," Hansel said. "He's sitting on the roof and he wants to say goodbye to me." "Stupid boy," said the woman. "That's not your kitten. It's the sun shining on the chimney." In fact, Hansel had been dropping the pebbles one by one on the path behind them. He was looking back because he wanted to make sure they could be seen. When they got to the middle of the forest, the father said, "Go and fetch some kindling. I'll make a fire so you won't freeze." The children gathered some small twigs, a whole pile of them, and their father set them alight. When the fire was burning well, the woman said, "Make yourselves comfortable, my dears. Lie down by the fire and snuggle up warm. We'll go off and cut some wood now, and when we've finished we'll come to get you." Hansel and Gretel sat down by the fire, and when they felt it must be midday, they ate their bread. They could hear the sound of an axe not far away, so they thought their father was nearby. But it wasn't an axe. It was a branch he tied to a dead tree. The wind swung it back and forth so it knocked on the wood. The children sat there for a very long time, and gradually the eyelids began to feel heavy. As the afternoon went past and light faded, they leaned closer together and fell asleep. They awoke to find themselves in total darkness. Gretel began to cry. "How can we ever find our way out?" she sobbed. "Wait till the moon comes up," said Hansel. "Then you'll see how my plan will work." And when the moon did come up, it was full and brilliant, and the white stone Hansel had dropped shone like newly minted coin. Hand in hand, the two children followed the trail all night, and just as dawn was breaking, they arrived at their father's house. The door was locked, so they knocked loudly. When the woman opened it, her eyes opened too, in shock. "You wretched children, you made us so worried," and she hugged them tightly so they couldn't breathe. "Why did you sleep so long? We thought you didn't want to come back." And she pinched their cheeks as if she was really glad to see them. When the father came down a moment later, the relief and joy in his face was real, because he hadn't wanted to leave them at all. So that time they were safe. But not long afterwards, the food was short again, and many people went hungry. One night, the children heard the woman say to their father, "It's no good. We've only got half a loaf left. Then we'll all starve. We must get rid of the children and do it properly this time. They must have had some trick before, but if we take them deep enough into the woods, they'll never find their way out." "Oh, I don't like it," said the father. "And there's not just wild animals in the forest, you know. There are goblins and witches and Lord knows what. Wouldn't it be better to share the loaf with the children?" "Don't be stupid," said the woman. "Where's the sense in that? You're soft. That's the trouble with you. Soft and stupid." She tore him to shreds with her criticism, and he had no defense. If you give in once, you have to give in after. The children were awake and they heard the conversation. When the adults were asleep, Hansel got up and tried to go outside again, but the woman had locked the door and hidden the key. Nevertheless, he comforted his sister when he got back into bed and said, "Don't worry, Gretel, go to sleep now. God will protect us." Early next morning, the woman came and woke the children as she'd done before. She gave them each a piece of bread, though it was even smaller this time. As they went into the forest, Hansel crumpled his bread up and dropped the crumbs on the path, stopping ever so often to make sure he could see them. "Hansel, keep going," said his father. "Stop looking back all the time." "I was looking at the pigeon on the roof," said Hansel. "She wants to say goodbye to me." "That's not your pigeon, you fool. It's the sun shining on the chimney. Stop dawdling." Hansel didn't look back again, but kept crumbling up the bread in his pocket, dropping it on the path. The woman made them all walk fast, and they went deeper into the forest than they'd ever gone in all their lives. Finally she said, "This'll do," and once again made a fire for the children to sit by. "Now, don't you move," said the woman. "Sit here, and don't budge till we come and get you. We've got enough to do without worrying about you wandering off. We'll be back in the evening." The children sat there until they felt it must be midday. Then they shared Gretel's little piece of bread, because Hansel had used his all up. Then they fell asleep, and the whole day went by, but no one came for them. It was dark when they woke up. "Hush, don't cry," Hansel said to Gretel. "When the moon comes up, we'll see the crumbs and find our way home." The moon came up and they began to look for the crumbs, but they couldn't find any. The thousands of birds that fly about in the woods and the fields had pecked them all up. "We'll find our way," said Hansel, but no matter which way they went, they couldn't find their way home. They walked all through the night, and then all through the following day, and still they were lost. They were hungry too, terribly hungry, because all they had to eat was a few berries they'd found. They were so tired by this time that they lay down under a tree and fell asleep at once. And when they awoke on the third morning and struggled to their feet, they were still very much lost. And with every step they seemed to be going deeper and deeper into the forest. If they didn't find help soon, they'd die. But at midday they saw a little snow-white bird sitting on a branch nearby. It sang so beautifully that they stopped to listen, and when it stretched its wings and flew a little way ahead, they followed it. It perched again and sang again, and flew a little way ahead, moving no faster than they could walk, so that it really seemed to be guiding them. All of a sudden they found themselves in front of a little house. A bird perched on the roof, and there was something strange about the roof. In fact, "It's made of cake," said Hansel, "and for the wall they made of bread," said Gretel. "As for the windows, they were made of sugar." Ooh. The poor children were so hungry that they didn't even think of knocking on the door and asking permission. Hansel broke off a piece of roof and Gretel knocked through the window, and they sat right down where they were and started to eat at once. Oh, what a strange little house. Do you think it's a good thing that they started to eat the house without knowing anything? We'll go on with the story next time.